Welcome to Radioacktiva.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you.
Well, it's great. They sent me the preview of the record. Sounds great.
Oh, thank you so much, man. It means a lot, really.
Well, I want also this conversation to be also an introduction about your work and what you've done and who you work with, since you, for us in Colombia, are quite a new talent. So tell me a bit about the bands you've worked with before.
Let's see. I started. Let's see. I've been around a long time. I started my first real professional gig. I was playing clubs back in New York, but my first real gig was when I joined Warlock. Doro Pesh. I was the bass player in that band in 1987, and I didn't play on the first record, but my picture's on there because I joined the band after the record was made, but I made the next record when it was just Doro. And then after that, man, it's a long list of things, you know what I mean? Like just working with people. I worked with Jeff Pilson from Dokken. We had a band called War and Peace with him and Russ from Steel Panther. We were in a band together. I was in a band with Cece DeVille and Kelly Hansen and James Kotak.
It's a very long list, man. Is it true that you started actually as a roadie?
For Alice Cooper, I did. I worked for Alice for about 3 weeks and then I got fired.
Why?
Because I told his assistant to go fuck himself because he was, he was just a complete asshole, this guy. And I was like, you don't talk to people that way. I don't care who you are. So I got fired. So it was good.
But still, you managed to get in this band.
My buddies were all like they were part of the road crew with Alice. They were one of them was guitar tech, drum tech, and a lighting guy. And they called me up and they said, "Hey, it's when I was like living in an apartment on Sunset Boulevard. I had no money. I had no furniture. I was driving around, no insurance. You have no." And they called me up. They said, "We'll give you $50 a day to drive the van and go get Alice stuff if he needs anything." I was like, "All right, cool." So after I was there for about an hour, I said to my buddies, and they looked at me and they go, "Don't do it," because they know me like a book. They go, "Don't do it." Because I was like, "Listen, man," I go, "I'm about to knock this guy out. I'm about to knock this guy out over here. I don't like the way he's talking to everyone. He talks to me that way and ain't going to go down." So they kept on telling me, "Please don't do it." And I let it go. And then after I saw him insult someone else, that's when all of a sudden I was like, you know what, man, I had enough of this shit. $50 ain't going to change my life. I'd rather, tell this guy to go fuck himself. You know what I mean? And that's what I did.
Cool. So with such credentials, when this project became a reality, why and how did you decide to say, okay, I'm going to do my solo stuff? Because you could be better off just playing with Alice and with the musicians you play with. So there's a risk always just becoming the front and center guy on a musical project.
I'm like one of those guys who's always in the back. You know what I mean? And I don't mind. I love my role, like in Alice Cooper and the Hollywood Vampires. It's it's one of those things where when we'd be sound checking at the gigs, Glenn and myself, we'd always break into AC/DC songs, And the lighting guy, one of the guys, he's been around for years, but the other guy actually works for AC/DC, still does for like 30 years, this guy Cosmo. So, but the other guy, Joel, would always say to me, he'd be like, "Tommy, are you messing around? Or are you doing this for real?" And I'd always be like, "I'm messing around." He'd be like, "No." He's like, "You need to do this for real." So we had a break for about a week, and I went home and I was like, you know what, let me write a couple songs, see what it sounds like. Because my favorite singers are Bon Scott and Alex Harper. You know what I mean? So I was like, let me fool around. And all of a sudden I put it down, and the first song I wrote was Boom Went the Boom. And I heard it and I went, you know what? I think I could do this, because it's like, you never want to be too comfortable. You know what I mean? I don't like sitting around going, I always like to do stuff. I always like to create, and making this music for me is such a relief and an outlet for me, because I could voice all of these crazy thoughts in my mind. You know what I mean? I could say, I don't give a fuck, because I'm not doing this for money. You know what I mean? I do this because I love it. And I want to have a message out there where people can feel connected with Crossbone Skully. You know, this is like, I would say it's an unanchored, unethical record, you know, and for Alan Kovac at Better Noise to sign a 56-year-old man at the time is like ridiculous. Who's going to give a guy who's 56 years old a fucking record deal in 2020?
How did it happen?
Yeah, I mean, the story itself, I got to tell you, man, it's a very inspiring story. You know what I mean? Because it's like, you never give up on your hopes and dreams. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm almost 60, and I'm still trying to be a rock star. You know what I mean? So, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's sad or pathetic or what, but, you know, it's what I love to do.
Yeah, man, passion. Who can understand them, right? Look,
it really is.
You just mentioned earlier during this conversation that you started off playing bass. And on the song "Flip the Bird," you kind of say "I'm back in bass," right? Is that a part of the lyric? I think you say "I'm back in bass." So I was wondering, like, even though we've heard you on guitar mostly, you're playing bass on this record?
On that song "Flip the Bird," Chris Wise is actually playing bass because Chris Wise is one of my favorite bass players. So I was like, how do I get a couple of my friends to play on some of the tracks? You know, like Nikki Sixx played bass on this other song we got coming out called "High on You," which he fucking, like, that's why I said to Nikki, I go, you gotta shut everybody the fuck up around here. I was like, you gotta play bass, because I don't know where they get these stories from. He doesn't play bass. The motherfucker plays bass guitar, and he plays it really fucking well, you know? So I was like, Nikki, play on a song for me, please. And he did. He fucking nailed it, you know? I don't know which, I gotta look for the lyric, because I have so many songs. I forget the lyrics.
Yeah, it's very vivid. You know, I was listening to it, and there was this moment I thought, is he saying I'm back in bass? Like, is playing bass on the record? Or is it the track? I wanted to ask you about that, because, of course, well, you play with so many people, and you clearly are more than capable to play a great guitar riff. So I was wondering about that.
I did play bass on almost all the songs on the record. Chris Wise played bass on this record because I've written like 75 songs. I could put a song out a week right now for the next 5 years. That's how many songs I have. Okay. And I'm not making that up, you know? And so I had Chris play. He's playing 3 songs on this record because I was like going, you know what? He was just sitting around one day. I was like, dude, come on over, play fucking bass. You know? Am I allowed to curse?
No, yeah, you're allowed to curse.
Oh,
it's okay.
Cool. Right.
Look, is it easy to come up with a cool guitar riff after you play with so many people? You have, of course, lots of things going on in your mind, but coming up with a different one, how does that work?
No, it is so hard. You know, it is so hard. Julio, right? That's your name, Julio? It's so hard to come up with stuff, first of all, that hasn't been done. You know what I mean? And then come up with something that's actually worth it, where you go, most of the times what I come up with first is a concept, you know what I mean? Where I'm writing stuff down. Like I could be hanging out talking to you. You could say something like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, hey, wait a minute. I'll write it down. Like, that'd be fucking a cool song, you know? But the riffs and stuff like that, that's a tough one, man, because it's like, I try and keep stuff very simple. You know what I mean? Because I'm not a complicated guitar player. I'm like, you know, Chuck Berry, like, I try and keep things simple, so if anyone like wants to play guitar, they can play the shit right out of the gate. You know, I'm not a virtuoso, you know. Yeah.
Look, you just mentioned Nikki Sixx playing bass on the record. There's also Phil Colin from Def Leppard. How did they end up on the album?
Phil Colin, how that happened was, Julio, Nikki Sixx, well, I got this call from the label saying they want to do these features. And I was like, features? Why do we want it? But then I called up Nikki, and Nikki said to me, listen, Tommy, features are very important these days. They're like having a ballad on your record. It's a great idea, and it's a great look where you can bring people together, and Spotify and all this playlist stuff. And I went, all right, it's a cool idea. Then I said to Nikki, I go, well, how about you play bass? And Nikki said, okay. And then on Boom Went the Boom, I'm like, oh, well, who would I want to play a solo on this? Is one of my favorite guitar players, Phil Colin. And I call up Phil, and I said, hey, man, I got a track for you. Check it out. See if you like it. And if you do, I would love for you to have like play a solo on it. He said, I sent it to him. He called me back. He said, I'll have it for you Thursday. And that was it.
Cool. And well, you also had there Mut Lang. I mean, he worked with Phil before, but that's got to be another story.
That story is, that to me is just the whole icing on the cake. That's like, that makes my life complete. Being able to work with Mut Lang and have a relationship with him. And it's one of those things where it's, I don't know, man. I'm so grateful for it. And, you know, the guitar player was playing guitar on the record, this guy, Tommy. He mentioned to me, he's like, yeah, I know Mut. So one day I said, why don't you send it to him? And he did. And he called me out of the blue and said, I think there's something here. And that's one of those moments where I had that like moment where I was like, oh my God, I've been working my whole life trying to make everything I do sound like Mut Lang. Every artist he's ever worked with, I love everything he's ever done. And when I got that call, man, I actually cried like a baby. I really did. It was like one of those moments where I went, you know what? I already won. I won. That's it. No one could say they get to work with Mut Lang. I did. So I won. You know, whether I sell a record or not, I still feel so grateful and amazing that I got to be able to work with Mut, you know, and I'm still working with him.
Mut Lang, Nicky Six, Phil Colin, and you also have Mark Wilkinson. He did the art, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah. It's hard to get Mark Wilkinson, dude. You don't get Mark Wilkinson. And Mark Wilkinson, he came up with the Skully, because when I first originally talked to Mark, that came from Tommy also. But when I first talked to Mark, I said to him, I was like, I want to make this character, Skully, Crossbone Skully. I want to make Skully this alien, but he's cool, he's evil, you know, he's not tall, he's the little guy, you know what I mean? He doesn't take shit from no one, and, you know, make it like fucking like a cross, whatever you do, like a crossbreed between Eddie and all the other crazy stuff he did. And we came up with the whole thing, because when you look at Skully, like I said to him, I want him to have elements of myself, you know what I mean? Like jewelry, things, earrings, and all these other things, and headband and all this other stuff. And, you know, I wanted to try and have it where, you know, this other character, you know how Alice Cooper is Alice Cooper? Well, you know, Crossbone Skully's this thing, you know what I mean? And he's a shapeshifter. So maybe I could shapeshift into him. I don't know.
So, I'm guessing we'll see more of the character, right? Of Crossbone.
Yeah.
Cool. Tell me a bit about your mindset when it came to recording the studio. You mentioned, of course, the people involved in developing it, but I'm guessing once you decide to get in the studio and work and record your own songs and all that, there's got to be something on your mind when it comes to lyrically write something, to put a message out there. And actually, you know, the first track is like 6 minutes long. So it's like, that's like a statement, if you ask me. Like, okay, the opening track on the sort of debut record of these guys, 6 minutes long?
Well, you know what shit I got for that? Because the whole idea, you know, like I always say, I'm not writing songs to get on the radio. There is no radio. I'm writing songs to, whenever I'm writing, it's more like, it's like cinema. You know what I mean? It's like a movie. And I wanted to write a song, and I wanted to have an intro to tell the story, what Skully is. So when you hear the whole record, Skully starts the record, he's in the middle of the record, and he ends the record. You know? That's why when you really hear the rest of the songs. And so I wanted to do an intro like Future Legend by David Bowie. You know what I mean? Where he does End in the Dust, Lay Rockin' Cups on. And then, and I wanted it to sound like Motley Crue too in the beginning. You know what I mean? And I wanted to have this thing but make it my own. And Johnny Depp was supposed to be the voice of Skully, but he was so busy at the time, I couldn't get his voice. And I was like, God damn it. And then one day I'm looking at my computer screen and I have all of these planets, and Stephen Hawking came in my head. It's like, let's get a Stephen Hawking voice or something like that. And then I found some voice app and I just started messing around with it. And that's when all of a sudden the light bulb kicked in. I went, that's the sound. it was really weird. It's like it was all by luck and chance. Well, all of a sudden it's like, if Johnny would have did, it would have been different. And then when Johnny heard Skully's voice, he looked at me and went, "Brother, you should thank me that I wasn't around." And I was like, because he loved it. He looked at me. He's like, "This is your Brando moment." He's like, "This is great." So
there you go, man. That's a great story too. Since you mentioned Johnny, how's the Hollywood Vampire thing going on?
very good. He's finishing up a movie right now, and but that tour went amazingly well. It was very successful. It's like we're selling out 20,000 theaters with not even a record out. You know what I mean? That's what I always say to everyone. It's like, you know what? It's the people who decide. It's not, you don't need a hit record to sell out arenas. We just proved it to everyone. Selling 20,000 tickets with no record. Pretty unbelievable.
And you're about to put your own record, which is also quite long. You have several tracks, big intro, long story to tell. So it's fascinating, man, that it doesn't matter your age, you're just putting it out there, and you already won.
I really do. I feel like, from working with Mut Lang, when I already won, it's like regardless of what happens, I you know what I mean? I got to work with the greatest producer who's ever lived, and it's amazing. But putting the songs together, Julio, it's like I never sit back and think about radio or I'm gonna write a song that's a girly song, a love song. No, dude, I don't write that stuff. I'm writing stuff that's like my life. This is like everything that I've gone through. It's like hardship. It's like mental fucking illness. It's depression. It's fucking having no money. It's survival. That's what all these songs are about. I'm not in a good mood. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not gonna write a happy song. You know what I mean? I got a lot of aggression. You know what I mean? So it's just like, that's why when I sit back and go, I can't listen to happy music. It's like, look at what's going on in the fucking world. Really? I'm happy? I'm fucking angry.
Thank you very much. It's been a great conversation. Wish you the best.
Thanks,
Looking
man.
forward to having you playing South America so we can see Crossbone Skully around here.
Me too, man. I want to rock the fucking place. That's what I want to do. I can't wait because I got a really young band, and that's another thing. I got a great young band, man, and it's like I wanted to do what Alice and Ozzy did: find young people who no one knows about. You know what I mean? I don't care if they ever played on stage or not. I want to give them an opportunity and a chance,
And Ozzy and Alice, they always push their musicians to, grow further than their own projects. So
absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
cool.
You know the deal, Julio. You know what's up.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much once again. Have a very nice day, Tommy.
Bye-bye.